All right, man. So peace. I started speaking about this brother Russell Westbrook last week. He is a phenomenal athlete, and that's to me is the extent to what he exhibits on the basketball court. I don't think that he has any real understanding of how to play the game. I think that he's been coddled by the liberal sports media. He's been part of the narrative of today's NBA because they didn't have enough storylines, so they tried to make his triple doubles a storyline. I think he's rather disingenuous in many of his statements. I think that they've let him go a little too far with a lot of his conduct. He's like a spoiled child. Every press conference he has to curse somebody out. Sometimes you need to curse people out, but every press conference it goes a little too far. I think he's been allowed to become too petulant, and that's why Kevin Durant left, and that's also why they're not going to be able to attract any free agents to play with him. And I think subconsciously he's content with that because I think that he believes that it's his world and everything has to go his way. And I think he's just one of these guys who just doesn't get it. But he is a phenomenal athlete. All right. To me, he's Allen Iverson 2.0. He's Allen Iverson if Iverson was 4 inches taller and about 40 pounds heavier. He's one of these guys who could have been a top 10 athlete in any sport that he chose. But when you get to the highest levels, the difference is the mental game. And it's going to show you, and that brings us to this little feature here. Kareem Abdul-Jabbar is going to state some observations about Russell Westbrook, and he's going to be fully and blatantly honest. And you're going to see how the liberal journalist Rachel Nichols reacts to his statements.
But back to Russ, because of course, right, it always comes back to Russ this season, no matter how you feel about him. And boy, the folks who did not vote Russ for MVP did a lot of I told you soing during this series.
And if you ask me who the MVP of the league should have been, it should have been LeBron James. All right? It should have been LeBron James. Russell Westbrook and Harden, they have very, very good seasons predicated on the offense and the team, running everything through them. To me, they're not efficient players. As soon as they face intelligent teams, they get shut down because they haven't been taught, they haven't been shown, and they haven't been forced how to utilize their teammates properly in every situation. So then when they face adversity, when they face a team that knows how to shut down their plan A, they don't know what to do. They just revert to taking bad shots. And that's what you see with Westbrook, or Westbrick as I call him, and James Harden, right? Or James Hardhead. And we'll see that as the playoffs go along.
As if the events that unfolded this past week were some kind of rude comeuppance or revelation to those that did vote for him. Spoiler alert, they were not. This is exactly what anyone who knows basketball expected, the full Russell Westbrook experience on display.
The Russell Westbrook experience. To me, Russell Westbrook, watching him play is like watching a great action movie from the 80s. You watch the Arnold Schwarzenegger, some Arnold Schwarzenegger action movie from the 80s or some Sylvester Stallone action movie, and it's nice to watch on a Saturday afternoon. It's fun, but it's not anything that's going to win an Oscar.
The triple doubles, the dazzling athleticism, and just sheer force of will that makes him so breathtaking, right along with all the downsides that come with it.
And his teammates are resentful. They try to front like they love him so much, but they're resentful because they know that he's not passing the ball in order to get them involved and play a team game. He's passing the ball so that he can run up his stats, and that's why I say he's very disingenuous. He tries to front like he doesn't care about his stats. Your whole season is based off of your stats, so knock it off.
With that excess, last night Billy Donovan was being peppered with questions about giving Russ a few minutes on the bench,
and we can't tell how good a coach Billy Donovan is because he's been hamstrung by having to cater to Westbrook. Right? They cannot run Westbrook out of town because he's all that OKC has left. He has to make sure that he keeps Westbrook happy.
And Billy finally said, he's a human being, which, well, I'm not sure has actually been completely proven, but it is important to remember. We throw around all these cliches in sports about winning and desire, But if you've ever been curious about the absolute limits of how hard a human can push himself in those pursuits, Russ has now shown you.
No, I don't think so. I think that I've seen other human beings push themselves to higher levels in athletics before. Michael Jordan comes to mind. Muhammad Ali in Manila comes to mind. A lot of other athletes come to mind before I would think of Westbrook. And I like Westbrook as an athlete. He's phenomenal. He's the greatest athlete in sports today, probably. But his mental game is he's coming up in the lower quadrant as far as mental IQ and how it relates to basketball. I mean, you can't even compare him to a guy like Chris Paul.
If it would have helped the Thunder for him to leave a pint of blood on the floor last night, he would have. And yeah, we can have the chicken and egg debate over whether Russ hampered his teammates' growth this year by being so dominant, or whether he needed to be so dominant because his teammates didn't grow. But we've now reached the point where it really doesn't matter. But
he's like a Kobe Bryant. He has to be reeled in by an authoritative, a very authoritative head coach, right? He needs a coach that's going to come in and say, no, Russ, we're not going to allow you to do that bullshit. All right, like Larry Brown did with Iverson, like Phil Jackson did with Kobe. All right, you can't have a guy that you can't have a coach that just comes and tells him, you know what, Russ, just do whatever you want to do, because they're going to go out in the first round every year. Because when they get to the playoffs and they game plan, you understand the psychology of your opponent, especially a guy like Westbrook, who's always running on 100 and always trying to be super, super aggressive. You suck him in. Plus, he's delusional. He thinks he can shoot. He can't shoot.
Thunder management will now spend the next few months trying to build more of a team around Westbrook. In fact, the irony is the front office's whole job this summer is to make sure a season like this never happens again, which ultimately will be good for the fans of Oklahoma City and probably even good for Russ. But it's at least a little bit sad for those of us who love watching spontaneous magic. This was a very special thing. So, gentlemen, both of you have been teammates with some of the greatest players in NBA history, so you're the perfect men to ask this question.
And now you're going to see Kareem break down Westbrook, and really he's going to confound this liberal sports journalist here after she's laid out her narrative about how great and how fun Westbrook is. Westbrook is so funny because you could tell nobody wants to play with him. Nobody would want to play with him. He's like the he's like the chick that works. She's at the strip club. Yeah, she's very, very attractive, but who the hell is going to take her seriously?
Kareem, if you could pick and have Russell Westbrook as a teammate now that you've had the whole Russell Westbrook experience, would you?
Well, I would want Russell to more focus on the team aspects of the game, because that is what basketball is all about. You see five guys working together, coordinated. When you dominate the ball that much, and especially with those turnovers, it's not good.
Now, mind you, Kareem did not answer her question. He was trying in a nice way to say Russell Westbrook is a dumb player with extreme amount of talent. And to keep things in their proper perspective, in their proper context, Kareem is a guy who played and won championships with the two guys who are currently the all-time leaders in triple doubles. I believe they're 1 and 2 in Oscar Robertson and Magic Johnson. So he would be the greatest person to ask that question to, because he played with two other guys who knew how to get triple doubles, but they did it within the flow of the game. They were not out there trying to accumulate stats to make themselves look greater. All right. So he tried to be nice, but now she's going to press the issue.
So is that a no? Russ as he is now. I'm not sure you're changing Russell Westbrook. So Russell Westbrook the way he is now, if you take what you get, would you pick him on the playground, or would you let him go somewhere else?
Well, I would expect Russell to adjust to the talent and needs of his teammate to contribute, because you don't win when everyone does not contribute.
Once again, Kareem is trying to be nice, right? She's asking him point blank, would you want to play with Russell Westbrook? He's saying no. All right? He's couching that in. I would expect Russell to adjust to the talent level of the players around him. But Kareem already knows that just watching how Russell plays, his mental outlook on the game is just be a Terminator. And the liberal sports media has fed into that mentality because they're always talking about how great he is. All these old school basketball players love talking about how great Russell Westbrook is. Reggie Miller, Charles Barkley, all these guys that rant and rave about Russell Westbrook, they would not want to play with him. Shaq, Russell Westbrook, he's the MVP, he's the MVP. Dude, you would not want to play with Russell Westbrook. You didn't even want to play with Kobe. All right? You would not want to play with some guy coming down the floor, making bad decisions, poor court vision, taking terrible threes, and can barely shoot the basketball. All right? Kareem is trying to be really diplomatic right now. He's trying to be nice. Westbrook is a young brother. He's trying to give him words of intellect and encouragement. But the answer is no. He will not want to play with him.
Tribute. And, this is about winning the games. It's not about totaling a lot of great stats, because that's great for you as an individual, but it's a team game.
See that? Kareem basically just laid it out. No, I would not want to play with him. All he does is accumulate stats. And Russell gets on the dais after these games, and he tries to front like everything with him is just about winning basketball. I remember when Durant got hurt a couple of years ago, and that was the first time that Westbrook went on his triple-double run. And they had a audio of him near the end of the game by the scorer's table asking, how many rebounds do I have? Because he was trying to keep the triple-double streak going.
I can't agree with Captain. I hear what he's saying. Like, if you got guys like him on the basketball court, now you have to find out a different way to play the game. And I think for Russell this season has really been about more him and his individual stats. But I felt like he needed to do that to carry his team to the next level.
That's partially fair. I think that he needed to do that more to get that out of his system. I wouldn't say to take his team to the next level. I think that he needed to get that out of his system. I think that he needed a season just for him to go out there and show himself and show everybody else what he could do without Kevin Durant. Right? He needed that for his own mental sports psychology well-being. Right, his own psychological outlook in regards to how much he felt like he could impact the team by himself. And we've seen that in the past with players. We saw that with Iverson in 01. We saw it with Kobe in 06. Jordan. Even though Jordan was, it's hard to mention Jordan with these other guys because he's the only guy in history who's been able to put up those type of numbers at the guard position and actually be proficient. You go back and you look at Jordan's numbers in the late 80s. He was shooting in the low 50% every year. He was shooting 53%, 54% from the field. These guys are shooting 42%. Like, it's not even a comparison. But I can understand where Scotty's coming from that perspective. Sometimes he just needed that this one season. I can scratch off this season if he comes back next year with a more focused attitude on actually helping with his teammates' overall improvement. Maybe his rebound numbers have to come down to about 7 so that Steven Adams can get more into the game, and his points can come down from 32 to about 26, 25. Maybe get his shooting percentage up from 42% to about 47%. All right, that's what great players do. That's why I said LeBron is the MVP. The man averaged 26, 8, and 8 on 54% from the field. All right? Like, it's not even close.
I think losing Durant, 20-plus scoring, losing his rebounding, it put a lot more pressure on Russ to feel like he had to carry this team this year. And he pretty much did. Now, in so doing that, he did hawk the ball a lot. And that's where his stats really became something that was more personal to him and not as important for the team.
Yeah, he hogged the ball. Scotty's being diplomatic. But, Scotty always takes the positive approach. That's what I like about him. He takes the positive, encouraging approach. That's good, especially when you're dealing with evaluating a so-called young black male. But at the end of the day, Russell has a ways to go.
The Oklahoma fans want to see plays where ball got past the 5 guys. The final guy he's the last open guy, he makes the shot, Kerr. Everybody remembers that. That's one of the more satisfying things for the fans to see happen. And it's not happening when you got one guy just taking all the shots and dominating the
and I
of
think
the ball.
That would.
You see, Kareem is still going on about him dominating the ball. You could tell Kareem does not like how he plays. And I understand that. Like, that's why I call Russell Westbrook a great action movie. All right, you're home on a Saturday afternoon, you're flipping around cable TV, you say, oh man, Predator's on. I'll check that out. But Predator's not going to win an Oscar. All right, the Oscar winning teams are in Golden State, Cleveland, places like that where they actually play team basketball.
But that will be something that will hurt him in terms of the MVP voting, is the fact that he dominated the ball a lot.
Right. Well, it's going to be interesting because, look, they're going to try to build and put other people around him because you got to practice a little bit in the regular season, right? What you want to see in the playoffs.
Exactly. And I think for us, what they didn't practice in the regular season, and that was playing with a second unit, getting used to playing basketball without him on the court dominating the ball, that hurt them in the playoffs because they weren't able to find any offensive rhythm with him on the bench.
Anybody could see that OKC was going to get blown out of the playoffs. They're like a fighter in boxing. They're like a fighter who's been matched well. They put him in with a bunch of tomato cans. He's getting easy knockouts. Now he's fighting his first real contender. Right? You get in the ring with that real contender. He can take punches that the guys I fought previously couldn't take. Oh, wow, he's not getting tired. Oh, wow, I can't hit him like I could hit those other guys. That's how it is in the playoffs. All right. You can't just have a plan A in the playoffs. You have to have multiple plans to win games in the playoffs. All right. OKC only had one plan. And when you look back at Russell's regular season, all of those big 50-point, 15 assists, 12 rebound games, they came against Orlando and Phoenix and all these other bum-ass teams. You get to the playoffs, yeah, you can get those numbers, but you're gonna have to put up a lot of shots to get those numbers.
It's strange because his minutes were not that high through the season. In fact, they were really careful about limiting his minutes through the season, so they did get out on the court without him. It's not like that didn't happen. But
it's real easy to defend a team when you know where the ball is going to go and how the offense starts every time.
It's easy to defend a team when you know where the ball is going to go, and it's also easy to defend a team when you know how the lead player is going to play. Everybody knows how Russell's going to play. There's no nuance to his game. That's why it's very, very easy to develop a game plan against him. It's not easy to stop him because he's a transcendent athlete. But you can play an amoeba type of defense where you suck him in, draw him into the rim, have guys converge on him. That's what you want. You want to pull him in and use his aggressiveness against him.
Every time. Mm-hmm. And when you have people guessing, it's a lot easier to run your offense.
Yeah. Well, Russ does a lot of things well. One of them is, of course, trash talk. He and Patrick Beverley continued their feud last night. I want you to take a look at the fourth quarter here. See them going back and forth, pushing, shoving. There were some words exchanged. What were they saying? Well, we will be very happy to let you know. Just take a listen. They told us.
And you got to understand something, too. A guy like Patrick Beverley, he loves that. Patrick Beverley's a guy who came from, playing in Europe. He's there arguing with Russell Westbrook. He can't lose that battle because Patrick Beverley could score 8 points. Russell gets 40. But if he makes Russell take 36 shots, he won that battle, right? If he has Russell shooting 15 of 36 from the field, 14 of 37 from the field, he won, period. Because now those are shots that are taken away from Russell's teammates that could have been better shots for OKC to win games. That's what people don't realize when they only look at the bottom line of how many points and empty numbers that Russell has accumulated. All right. You want to get as many attempts up as possible to make him get his points. He's not an efficient player.
Oh, yeah, he was talking about he was first team all defense, but I didn't know what the hell he was talking about because I had 42 at the time. The series, I don't know what he talking about. Maybe he was dreaming of something.
Now, you see, once again, Russell feels like he has to curse in every press conference. That's from being coddled. Russell is not a dumb dude. He had something like a 4.0 grade point average in high school. This guy was an academic scholar. He is an extremely intelligent young brother, but he's gotten caught up in playing a certain role on TV because the media has coddled him and has allowed him to take on this rebellious aura, this persona of, I don't give a you-know-what. I'm going to say what I want to say. And now he's become this guy who's become a rather incorrigible, petulant child. And they're going to have to rein him in if they want to win anything in the playoffs in the future. But you see what he said. He said, well, the guy said I'm a first team all defense, but I have 40 some odd points. Well, bro, you just got knocked out of the playoffs.
I don't know.
He
he looked up and said, "No, we can guard me. I got 40 points." I'm like, "That's nice." He took 34 shots to get it.
Checkmate.
I mean, no, I'm not out there trying to bash anybody, but I mean, men lie, women lie, but the numbers don't.
And that's the point. When you take 34 shots, you're supposed to have at least 50 points. At least.
Women lie, numbers don't lie. But, he wasn't trying to bash him or anything. Kareem, did you like anything out of that back and forth?
Well, I like the fact that somebody's focused on winning and somebody's focused on stats.
You see, Kareem is on him, boy. Kareem is on that man's ass. He says somebody's focused on winning and somebody's focused on stats. I don't understand how you could sit there in the press conference after you just got knocked out of the playoffs and talk about how many points you had, unless that's really what you're concerned about.
What do you like? What's your preference?
You did some trash talking in your day.
Not much, no. Once or twice, had some bad moments with the Celtics. When they pulled Kurt Rambis down and we wanted to hurt somebody, as opposed to wanting to win the game, we wanted to hurt somebody, and that's not cool.
Yeah.
Larry Bird wasn't taking no shit either. Larry Bird wasn't taking no shit. He said, "What you want to do?"
These images, though, are kind of
that just looked like some bad blood right there.
And we didn't have bad blood. I got a lot of respect for Larry. That wasn't what it was about. But when McHale pulled down Rambis, we lost it, and we got caught up in wanting to hurt them physically as opposed to
win the game
series, and that'll hurt them a lot more.
You shouldn't talk, though, by the way, because there's some video. Producer Danny has some video of you, too, I believe.
Yeah. I did a little trash talking back in my day.
Now you're back on Kareem. They're like, no, we're just going to keep showing Kareem.
Kareem tried to stab him with the elbow.
Just trying to make a statement.
Mm-hmm. Yep. That finishes up afterward a little bit.
I had some great battles. All this has happened all between the lines. So
Scottie Pippen was a great all-around player. For those who didn't see him play, he was a great all-around player. He just wasn't good in the clutch. But first 3.5 quarters, he was a great all-around player.
And so everything is good outside the line.
I mean, you can see with a player like Patrick Beverley, and you can see with Russell Westbrook, it helps them. It helps fuel them playing. They can't play without it, right?
It is. I mean, I wish the series was still going on. Yeah. It would make it that much more fun. But, these guys definitely were going at each other throughout this series, and there's some little bit of a history there. So it was great to see the competitive fire of both of them.
Big history there. I wouldn't be surprised, by the way, if we offered to let them go one-on-one for some money. They would still continue that for us. I don't know. I want to talk about the game I was at.
Well, no, let's not. See, the thing about Westbrook, too, is that when you evaluate that series against the Rockets, if his mental IQ was higher, the series would still be going on. All right, when you come down to playoff games, the last 3, 4 minutes, 5 minutes, it comes down to who has the higher mental IQ. People are making a huge deal about when he sat on the bench, how Houston came back. Well, that's the coach's fault for OKC. As Scotty pointed out, they were never allowed to operate outside of the prism of Russell Westbrook dominance throughout the season. So now you put them in a highly pressurized situation and you expect them to execute. That's just not going to happen. All right? Also, down the stretch of games, teams know Russell Westbrook is going to make bad decisions. He just does. He throws the ball away. He forces it. He takes long jump shots when he's not a good jump shooter. Down the stretch of the game in the fourth quarter where your legs are tired, I don't care how conditioned you are, you're taking well-defended 25-foot jump shots. I don't care how well-conditioned you are. Those are very, very low percentage shots. Everybody knows how to defend Russell Westbrook down the stretch of a game because he has very, very low IQ. All right, so now, I saw this little segment here on Colin Cowherd's show, and I thought that he made a very accurate assessment of Russell Westbrook's mental approach, his psychological perspective in regards to his approach to the game. And when I say that, I'm talking about Westbrook's approach. Westbrook has a very coddled and petulant persona that has been encouraged by the liberal sports media, and it's resulted in him being a very inefficient and very short-sighted player. He doesn't understand the game. He doesn't see the game from a microcosmic perspective. He only sees it from a microcosmic perspective, meaning how he can affect the game and what he can do. And he looks at his teammates merely as tentacles. He's the main octopus and everybody else is just the tentacles. He doesn't know how to improve his teammates. And a lot of that has been enabled by the media. And I liken that situation unto an artist or a musician who is extremely talented, but he's on drugs or she's on drugs. And they're constantly being told that it's cool for them to keep doing the drugs that they're doing because it's helping the quote unquote creative process. That's what it's like for the media to keep trying to extol the so-called Westbrook experience, whatever that means. All right. The Westbrook experience is him jacking up a bunch of shots that he shouldn't take, and it's hurting his team in the long run. Right. That is not a playoff winning style of basketball. But let's see what Colin Cowherd has to say about Westbrook.
When you go to therapy, here's something they never say. Blame others. Point fingers. They never say that. Because they realize that you control you. Worry about you. Fix you. It's not your ex-wife's fault. Your current wife doesn't like you much either. It's not your kid's fault. They're 4. Only you can control you.
I agree with that. There's something called accountability. You know, I made a few comments when I did the so-called gay gene video. And a brother remarked in the comments, you know, when these Israelite brothers, he made a comment. He said, well, are you saying that Esau can be changed? You know, the scriptures tell you that he can't be changed. Well, when you listen to the video, I encouraged a lot of the people who agreed with that life choice of homosexuality and who denied the correlation between pedophilia and homosexuality. I encouraged them to get psychological help. I didn't tell them to check the scriptures. All right. Any nation of people can be changed or assisted through a psychological or psychiatric assistance. All right. They can be assisted in that manner. Now, the so-called Caucasian or Esau, he cannot be corrected through the scriptures. All right. The spirit is not dealing with him, but they can be assisted through psychiatry. As this person here, Colin Cowherd, is attesting to become a more functional member of this current society for however long it lasts. Right? Not trying to divert, but, you know, it just came into my mind what somebody asked me, a question that they asked me in that gay gene comment section when this man made the statements that he made about the help that he's gotten through psychiatry. But let's continue on.
Therapists never tell you to blame others and point fingers. Go to the bathroom. Mirrors still work, folks. We just don't like to use them.
I agree. And that's why one of my main platforms is self-accountability. All right. So-called black people, not to divert again, but so-called black people, you can keep talking about the white man all you want. The white man's not going to change. Most of them are descendants of so-called white trash. Most of them did not have black slaves. You have to stop looking at them as people who are going to reimburse you with something. All right. You have to search out your own culture. But anyway, like I said, let's get back to Westbrook.
Here's Westbrook's fourth quarter stats. 28% from the field, 19% from threes, more turnovers than assists. Whose fault is that? Oh, my bad, Steven Adams. Colin, he is exhausted by the fourth, meaning he doesn't pace himself.
Exactly. He doesn't pace himself properly in the first 3 quarters. He's out there playing that Tasmanian devil style of basketball. He's taking bad shots. He's out there trying to get every rebound instead of letting his big men get rebounds and staying outside and trying to set up guys like Oladipo with mid-range jumpers that he can make. Allowing Oladipo, who's a good athlete, to handle some of the dribbling responsibilities, taking it to the basket, getting little breaks here and there, and then maybe with 5 minutes left, he can try to take over and play the hero.
Michael Jordan did. Whose fault is that? LeBron plays 5 more minutes per game than Westbrook in these playoffs. He's not exhausted. He's rather dynamic. Whose fault is that?
Because LeBron knows how to use his teammates and move the ball. And yes, LeBron does have a little bit more talent on his team than Westbrook does. But LeBron also knows how to use the talent on his team way more than Westbrook does.
When you have no self-awareness, when you shot 43% with KD and 43% without KD, it's not about others. It's about you.
Now, in fairness to Russell, he did shoot about 46.5% last year with KD. But it was because he finally started to take better shots. And because KD stretched the floor so much, it allowed him to get better shots. But he's mostly a 43% shooter, which means, like Colin said, for a guy with that much ability to only be shooting 43%, that means he's taking a lot of bad shots.
Therapy teaches that you solve your problems. Did you hear what I said there? You solve your problems through you, not others. Did you hear Westbrook after his embarrassing fourth quarter? Did you hear him? Play the tape.
He was talking about he was first team all defense, but I didn't know what the hell he was talking about because I had 42 at the time. The series, I don't know what he talking about. Maybe he was dreaming of some I don't know.
You can be first team all defense and give up 40 points to somebody who's taking 40 shots. That's how it goes, Russ. I like your Freddy Krueger hat, too. It's cool.
Oh, you had your 40. It was all good. 28% field goal percentage in the series in the fourth. Russell, go get a therapist. Russell's fans, you could use one too. This is not about Steven Adams and Victor Oladipo.
I completely agree. I think that Russell actually does need what they call a so-called sports psychologist. All right, just from the standpoint of if I'm the owner of the OKC Thunder, I need to, and he's the most talented player on the team and probably the most talented overall player in the NBA. We need to figure out how we can improve his ability to see the floor. We need to get the coach in there, Billy Donovan, and we need to stop him from being intimidated by Russell. And we need to figure out how we can draft some form or some type of plan or structure to use the talent that you have to produce a team that can actually win in the playoffs, because this team cannot win in the playoffs unless they just don't care, unless it's just going to be, like I said, the Russell Westbrook action movie every season.
He had Kevin Durant, and Durant couldn't stand playing with him.
And that's the part of the narrative that the liberal media leaves out when they talk about how Westbrook is by himself. Durant didn't like playing with him. And like I said, a lot of these other guys don't like playing with him either. The difference is they don't have the clout to leave.
It's all Westbrook. With TrueCar, you can find what other people in your area paid for the same car you're looking.
But anyway, that's the point. I like this little segment. He touched on some good things. So peace.